Turning now to the State of the State address this week by Governor Rick Snyder. It was his last one, and it got people talking about what they believe really is the state of our state. Do the numbers of economic prosperity add up? Are they at the expense of other investments like infrastructure and education? And how much of the governor's to-do list will really get done? Quick impressions from both of you about the State of the State this week. Before we go to Nolan, you sat down with the governor this week. I'm going to start with you, Stephen.
Yeah, I mean, it was a wrap-up speech, right? A wrap-up of 8 years. Here's all the things that I think I should get credit for. He didn't have a whole lot of things to announce, probably because...
I think it's kind of expected, you know.
Yeah,
if he had announced major initiatives, it almost would have been like, okay, well,
you have 10 months
luck,
or whatever to get that done. But he did say he wanted to increase the foundation allowance for schools significantly. I think that was pretty significant.
By over $220.
Yeah, and that would matter. He talked a little about infrastructure, wanting to try to pivot a little in this last year to dealing with that a little differently.
Yeah,
but,
we'll get into a little bit more specifics in how he can do that. But Nolan, you sat down with him this week. How did you find him?
You know, I think he's a lot different than he was a year or two ago when he was still reeling. That's the first time he'd been in our office since right after Flint. We hadn't seen him in the office in a couple of years, and you know, I thought he was his old self, and I thought he was very pleased with. You know, he looked at his record, he recapped his record in that speech, and I think he's very content and pleased with what he's got done. I got the feeling that he'd love to keep doing it. You know, there's a sense you saw at the end of the speech. You know, and we talked about that, a bit of wistfulness there.
Yeah.
You know,
but he's not good at this job in a number of ways, especially right now. He can't get the legislature.
But you've been debating that for 8 years.
I mean, you know, the guy's record speaks for itself. I mean, he's been good at certain things, and at certain times, he's had some real victories, but there's a lot of failure.
All right, let's go ahead and let's go ahead and take. Well, we'll debate it, but let's go ahead and take a look at Nolan's interview with the governor.
Governor, thanks for sitting down with us today. We wanted to talk to you. You gave your State of the State address Tuesday night, and it's your last State of the State address. And you used the beginning part of it, much of the beginning part of it, as sort of a recap of what you've done over these 7 years in Michigan. Are you satisfied with what you've been able to accomplish for Michigan? Have you checked off most of your to-do list?
Yeah, well, it's been exciting, Nolan, and it's not just about me. It's what we've done together. The state's made a huge comeback. I mean, think back to 2009, 2010. I mean, those were rough years. And if you look at it, we're a fundamentally much better state today. And people can feel that if you stop and reflect back. Our economy, 540,000 private sector jobs, #1 in the Great Lakes states, #6 in the nation. Same thing with per capita income in terms of those rankings. And then home values. People's home values have gone up dramatically. These are things that really make an impact on people's lives, and I'm proud of a lot of other programs we've done, from education to infrastructure.
You seem to be making a case for your legacy in that speech, going over the things that you've accomplished, the things you're proud of. The same day you gave that speech, we had a poll in the Detroit News that asked Michigan voters how they felt about where we've come as a state under your leadership. And we had 2/3 of the people in the state, or the voters, said that we're either worse off or no better than they were 7 years ago. Does that perception surprise you? And what would be your explanation for why the perception of these people in this survey doesn't match the reality that you laid out Tuesday night?
Yeah, well, first, I think if you take it down to the individual level and sit down with people and really ask them what their life was like back then and what it is today, most people are better off, if you really put it in that context. And one of the things that I think could diminish that when people do polling and such is our nation, in terms of all the fighting going on, all the conflict going on. I think that really kind of puts a pallor on the whole thing, that brings people down, because, and it is wrong. We need to be a positive place. And when your leadership is all about negativity, it affects you. And in Michigan, I've tried to be a role model. I call it relentless positive action. No blame, no credit. And you mentioned the thing, I'm not trying to build my legacy. What I've been trying to do all these years, because this was a special honor and opportunity to be governor, is to say, can we build a foundation? We were a broken state. Can we build a foundation that can be sustainable for the long term, that other people can come and build on? and make it even better. And that's been my goal.
But Governor, you would like to see the things you've done and the progress you've made sustained. And the worry about the perception, if people don't think that what you've done has worked to make their lives better and make the state better, the worry is that it'll be harder to sustain these programs and practices, policies that you've put in place.
No, that is a challenge. But let's be proud that, again, in terms of job creation, in terms of economic environment, we're a top 10 state today. We were a bottom 10 state before in the lost decade. We've got great energy going into the future. This whole field of mobility, where the auto industry and the IT industry are coming together, is a wonderful opportunity and a wonderful challenge, but we're the world's leader in that. Let's embrace those kind of opportunities to say, let's not dwell on the negatives. Let's talk about positives and common ground on how we can take diverse people and say, we can all win together versus this win-lose attitude that you're seeing at the national level and too often in our world.
You got one more year left. That wasn't a farewell address.
No, 6.5 dog years to go. The way I view it is
so you got 11 months to go. What do you want to finish up this year? What do you want to start new this year?
Yeah, there's a number of things. So one of the big things is I'm calling it the Marshall Plan for Talent. I'll roll out in about 3 weeks. And it's really about how can we dramatically accelerate competency-based learning, certificates and things like that can lead people into jobs that pay $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 a year, and literally do that for tens of thousands of Michiganders. We've done some great things with the professional trades, but we can go a lot faster by having a focused effort to help lead the country in understanding how we close these career opportunities and create them for people in terms of new jobs.
Had we had this in place, this Marshall Plan in place, would we have had a better shot at landing the Amazon bid?
Yeah, in fact, it's reflected in the Amazon bid. Many of the elements, many of the basic principles, we put in there in some fashion. Again, the specifics will come out in 3 weeks or so, but it's following that similar kind of path to say, how do we make the pie bigger? Because one of the things when I looked at Amazon is I said, do we want to win Amazon if it's just going to take employees from our great companies already? Because we should be taking care of Michigan companies even before we take care of new companies. And so I said the issue here is this shouldn't be about having people just move from company to company. How do we make the pie even bigger in terms of giving access to great Michiganders to walk into great well-paying jobs that have openings today? So have them go to work at Ford, GM, Quicken, Little Caesars, all these wonderful companies, and at the same time have enough people that we could even fill in Amazon. Because if these people have the talents, some companies will come here to hire those people.
So, Governor, the lowest point of your governorship over these past 7 years was the Flint water crisis, and you mentioned Flint in the speech Tuesday night. When you leave office at the end of this year, will you have made things right with the people of Flint?
Well, the people of Flint have to make that decision on their own. But what I can say is the water quality in Flint has been good for some time, comparable to other cities. We're going to continue that process. Service lines are being replaced. We've got educational and health efforts to help particularly young people in Flint, but the people of Flint be more successful. And we're starting to see some good progress in economic development. Lear is adding 400 plus jobs in Flint. GM's putting a new engine in their engine plant up there. On entrepreneurship, the Ferris wheel building's going on. This is won a national award for economic development about creating entrepreneurship. Those are the kind of things that let's take care of the basic services, but let's create an exciting environment for job creation. That can make a difference in Flint.
Now, you choked up a little bit at the end of your speech last night. You were thanking your family, your staff, the others who have helped you throughout this journey here. It sounds like you hate to go, or you hate to see this end. Have you enjoyed the experience?
Well, it's been an experience of a lifetime. I mean, when else do you get a chance to say you get to help 10 million people? And it's not any 10 million people. I'm a Michigander. I'm proud of that. This is my home. This is going to be my home. And so it's a chance to give back. And so I view it as, I wouldn't say it's about hating to leave, but the chapter's going to close. But it's been a chapter that I'm proud to say I had the opportunity to do in my life. And the reason I did it, I spoke, that's where I was getting choked up, was it was about keeping our kids in the state. And it was very personal about keeping Sue and I, our kids in the state. So it was great to report how we've kept our kids in the state. And then I asked people to reflect, because I view that as one of the greatest measures when people say, are we better off? How many young people do we know that otherwise would have had to leave Michigan, they have been able to stay here now, or come back, or bring in new kids. That's exciting, and that's a wonderful thing.
You know, I think it's really interesting, Nolan, when you talk to him about perception and mood and why people still don't connect with what he feels is the economic recovery of the state. Because maybe it's that person sitting at home saying, I'm still getting paid the same thing I got paid in 2010, and my child's not really doing good in 4th grade reading scores, which is 41st in the nation, and my car just hit a pothole on the road and I've got to pay $1,200 to get it fixed. That there are people that, while the numbers are still good, and we're growing and our rate of growth is very good, according to the rest of the national average, it's still lower in some places.
Well, and most of the state is growing at or above the national average. We are outpacing the national average in job creation, home sales. If you look at where we were in 2010, our homes were worth half of what they had been, maybe 2/3 what they had been. We had lost a tremendous amount of people, tremendous amount of jobs. This was a busted state, and the despair at that time was palpable. I mean, it was a hopeless feeling. In 7 years, if you look at where we've come and what he's been able to do by putting in good fiscal policies, good growth policies, good practices, government practices, balance. We don't have budget fights anymore.
But it's gotta
This
pay off.
was a broken state, and it's not today.
But if
Did it come at a cost? Is my question to you.
It came at a huge cost. I mean, people are paying more taxes as individuals than they were before he was governor. Old people pay taxes.
I thought you liked taxes.
I liked some taxes.
You're the guy who say we got to pay more taxes for everything.
You got a 10 spot we can borrow?
People's incomes, our median income is 35th in the nation. That's not good. Our home values, even though they've recovered, are 29% lower than the national average. I mean, if you are living in this state,
But they've always been lower than
sending
the
your kids
national
to the schools, driving the roads, those things, it's not better.
So-
It's
Unemployment 4.9%.
You have to be able to manage sort of multiple truths. He did fix a lot of things at this end. It's also not making a difference at that.
And
10
Detroit
seconds,
would
Nolan.
not be where it is today without
that's
the
also
efforts of
true.
this
Yeah,
government.
that is also very true. Something that I want
But
to
most
attack,
people in
though,
Detroit not feeling
that's
that
what
either.
I want. What do I want to attack, though, on the next episode of MiWeek, talking a little bit about the Marshall Plan, looking at getting people in skilled trades, but also why can't we make college education a little bit more affordable so we can get those the college degree population that companies are looking for when they come here? See Amazon.